Once again, welcome in everybody. Great to see our attendees list continue to filter in. We're about a minute past 11, and I do want to be conscious of everybody's time, so we'll jump right into it, as I'm sure we're still going to have people that'll be coming through. But hello, welcome everyone. Very, very excited to have you guys join us here today. My name is Steven. I will be your moderator for today's Webshop. We welcome you to part one of our Beyond Pricing Quality Webshop series, as we delve into the crucial topic of how to select the right contractor. We do have an announcement at the very end of this session that I think you're not going to want to miss. So please stick around, and I know you will want to see the upcoming event that we are hosting, which I will share details after our Q&A session towards the end of this web shop. And before we dive right in, I'd like to draw your attention to an exciting opportunity. We will be awarding a $200 Amazon gift card today to the individual who poses the best and most insightful question during this web shop. So please ensure that you're interacting with us throughout this web shop using the Q&A function icon, and we will do our best to address as many questions as we can throughout. A few housekeeping.
Hey, Steve.
Oh,
quick question here.
Yes, Dave.
Just wondering, are Heinrich and I eligible for this gift card?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Come on now.
Well, considering you guys will be the ones out of pocket for it, if you'd like to buy two and give one to yourself, all the power to you. So, but just a few other housekeeping notes I wanted to address before we dive in. Audio settings, please just make sure that your audio output is working. We have limited the availability for video and audio to myself and our two panelists, which I will introduce to you momentarily. Also, don't worry about taking extensive notes. All attendees will receive a copy of today's presentation for your reference, including a recording of this session, along with a few other valuable and key takeaway items. And in terms of engagement, and like I've mentioned, this is not just a webinar, it truly is a web shop. We encourage active participation and engagement. We'll do our best to address as many questions as possible during this session, and throughout the web shop, please use the Q&A chat box to submit your questions. We will have a dedicated Q&A session towards the end, but we'll be addressing certain things along the way. And last piece of housekeeping before we dive in, and I just want you guys to keep in mind that we do offer tailored lunch and learn sessions. And given that we've worked on projects to the tune of a small strata lobby all the way up to multi-million-dollar projects, we are happy to share those insights that will make your life easier. During this lunch and learn, you can enjoy lunch on us, a presentation that will be customized to meet your specific needs. We're happy to do this in a variety of locations, either at our office or we can come to you. And following the session, you'll receive a comprehensive summary of detailed feedback, along with some other key pieces of information as a reference guide that are both practical and usable tools. Or we can actually present this web shop in person if you feel that it would be of value of you and or to your colleagues that weren't able to attend today. Okay, well, to kick things off, our first question, and more just a story, just to kind of warm things up, just to get the Q&A going, I invite you to share with us your worst contracting experience. Your insights today will help guide our discussion and ensure that we cover the most relevant topics for you. So don't be shy, let's hear your stories. But as those are starting to filter in, I want to give an introduction to our panelists, starting with Dave. Dave Nate, Dave is the founder and CEO of WCP Building Renewal. He founded Wolfgang Commercial Painters back in 2004 and has an impressive tenure of over 30 years in the industry. Dave also was the founder of Shack Shine, which he later went on to sell to O2E brands in the mid-2010s. Welcome, Dave. Next, please join me in extending a warm welcome to Heinrich Schumann, a cornerstone of WCP Building Renewal since its inception as Wolfgang Commercial Painters back in 2006. Heinrich has nearly 2 decades of hands-on experience under his belt, and he has spearheaded over 4,500 projects in collaboration with commercial and residential partners throughout British Columbia. Some of you may have noticed that we've recently rebranded and may be wondering about our name and why WCP, which is a terrific question. Well, WCP is an acronym for our original name, Wolfgang Commercial Painters, and serves as a tribute to our 20 years in business. You also might be wondering what the heck is Building Renewal and why did we change our name? Well, commercial painting no longer captured our true essence as a company. Although commercial painting does remain one of our core services today, we have expanded to a full suite of services which outline Building Renewal, which encompasses the revitalization and restoration of a building exterior, interior surfaces, which include high and low-rise building restorations and interior common areas. Now, before I hand things off to Dave and Heinrich, I just wanted to quickly touch on the purpose of today's session, which will be to examine the 3 basic stages of selecting the right contractor for your project. We'll highlight red flags to look out for, and we'll outline the 3 essential expectations to establish with your contractors, and also 3 common mistakes to avoid while you're in your contract selecting process. As a note as well, there are some great third-party softwares and platforms to use in issuing your project requirements that can put you in touch with terrific contractors. For example, Vendor PM, Avetta, and ComplyWorks, just to name a few. These are great softwares to use. However, the content from today will help to supplement those efforts. And also, for what we're speaking to today, predominantly relates to smaller projects that fall under the $200,000 to $300,000 total cost threshold. But whatever your project costs, anything above that, we recommend that you consult with a third party. Okay. So to pause for a moment, we've already received some great stories. And in case you were late and missed it, we will be giving away a $200 Amazon gift card for the most insightful questions we receive. Please just use that Q&A icon as we start to see these questions start to filter in. First one right out of the gate. Dave, before I hand things off to you, a common one that we hear, contractor left a complete mess after the job was completed. So...
Right. So the classic messy job site challenge. Yes, that is all too common in the construction industry. And I can tell you, keeping it real here, I mean, we've been in this business for over 2 decades. When we were getting started and learning how to run a tight job site, we had our challenges with that as well. We're going to dive into a whole bunch of stuff on how to select the right contractor and have a successful project, and ways you're going to avoid having contractors that don't run a tight site. That's what this is all about. So let's get started here right in on stage 1, clarifying your project requirements. So this is the foundational step for all of you out there. You get this part right, and you're going to give yourself a really good shot at bringing the right contractor on board and having a successful project. So I just want to say all of the best practices, tools, and tips that we're going to share with you today apply to all project and contractor types. So whether that be roofing, repiping, carpentry, painting, building envelope work, interior remodel work, these are best practices that you can apply to every single construction project that you might have under your belt. So I'm looking at our attendee list here. I see some familiar names, people that are in the multi-unit strata project management world, others that are in the commercial space, people that look after massive facilities or multiple commercial spaces across British Columbia. This applies to all of you, regardless of the specific industry you're in and the specific contractor or project that you're looking to bring to market. So right back to the first step. So before you even think about speaking to any contractors or going to market, you need to write your basic project outline. And you're probably thinking, whoa, wait a second here. I'm not a project manager. It's okay. We are talking about a very simple document that lays out what you need and what your expectations are for your project. And we've made it really easy for you. We've put together a template that you can utilize over and over again to write your project requirements. So let's take a quick look at that one. Okay, so you can see this here. This is just a screen grab or a little snippet of what we're going to share with you after the session is done, and you're going to be able to utilize it. It really is, it's just a doc, and it goes through sort of the 6 key things that you need to get written down and thought through before you go to market, before you even start talking to contractors, just to make sure you set up this project properly. First and foremost, the scope of work. So again, scope of work. For some of you, that may be like, what the heck does that mean? Basically, it means at a very basic level, what do you need to get done? So let's look at this roofing example again. Say you are a property manager for strata, multi-unit strata, and you have an 80-unit townhouse complex, and the roofs need to be redone. That is your scope of work. 80 units, re-roofing, all existing roofing. It's that simple, okay? And then you're going to put down your schedule. So at this stage, when do you think the work is going to be done? Spring, summer, fall, what year? You're going to be listing out your key contacts. Who's the decision maker? Who's the site contact? Who's the day-to-day liaison? You're gonna put in a date for your mandatory site meeting, and Heinrich's going to be speaking to this. You are going to hold a site meeting, and that is going to be mandatory that all contractors attend. And then you're going to have some other key dates in there as well. The date that you need your bid submitted, and the date that you're going to award your contract. So super simple stuff that you need to get drawn out before you even think about going to market and speaking to contractors. I want to draw your attention to one specific area on this, and that is this area on the requirements to bid. So these are your unique needs for your project. Let's say you manage care homes. You have a number of care homes across the province that you manage, and you have some tenants that have some high needs. Your contractors need to know about that. Perhaps the work needs to be done after hours to not disturb your tenants. Perhaps you need your contractors to have specific vetting requirements, like criminal record checks or something like that. That all needs to go into your requirements to bid. Let's look at another example. Maybe you're a commercial property manager or facility manager. You manage shopping centers with marquee anchor tenants like a Costco or a Save On Foods or a London Drugs. These type of tenants that measure their revenue by parking stall, right? So you may say, hey, look, parking stalls cannot be blocked for more than a 4-hour period or something like that. The point is these are the things that are specific to your bid that you feel need to be highlighted. So just jot those down, get that in your outline that you're putting together. You are going to distribute this to your contractors when the time comes. Okay, so the next step, requesting a budgetary quote. If you are lucky enough to have a preferred contractor in whatever service you're looking for, or perhaps one of your colleagues has a contractor that they've used before, I highly recommend that well in advance of the project going out to market, you ask for a budgetary quote. Now, this can be simply a contractor that is trusted, goes out, looks at the baseline of the project, and gives you an idea of price and an idea of what they would recommend on materials. Not a fulsome proposal, but just something simple. Why do you do this? Because this will help you level set with your owners or board or customers on what the cost of the project is going to be. If you've budgeted $100,000 and you get a budgetary quote and it's coming in at 400, you probably have to have a discussion with your owners and say, hey, are we ready for this? Do we need to delay this? That's why you do this. Okay, so it can be very helpful. If you don't have a preferred contractor in the given service, maybe you're not going to be able to do this, but if you do, I highly recommend you do. Step 3, you're going to pre-screen your contractors. Now, I want to say here, all of these steps that you've done so far, you have not had to leave your desk. You have not had to get behind the car and commute. You can do this all from the comfort of your office or home. Even getting the budgetary quote, that's just a phone call or an email to the contractor, right? So Before you then decide which contractors you're gonna invite, you need to do some pre-screening. And it's not a difficult process. There is endless tools out there that you can look at. First and foremost, go to the contractor's website. Get a feel for the type of work that they do. Have they done projects similar in scope and size and scale to the one you're looking to put to market? A great place to start is always WorkSafe BC. You can go onto WorkSafe BC and find out a lot of information. First and foremost, you want to find out that they are active and in good standing with WorkSafe. You would be surprised at the number of large-scale contractors out there that are delinquent with WorkSafe. So that's a really important thing to look at. Okay. And then, of course, as we all do for almost everything we do now, read reviews. There is lots of places to get reviews out there. Of course, Google reviews, Facebook, any number of vetting softwares out there, Avetta, ComplyWorks, that you can join and get a feel for your contractors. But this brings us up to our first red flag. If you're doing your research and you come across a contractor that you think might be worth inviting, be careful if you see very few or no reviews at all. Okay. There's a sort of a bit of an urban myth out there that some contractors are so old school, they don't have a fulsome website and they don't work hard to get reviews. No. In today's day, you want to see reviews, and just, a boots on the ground tip for you. They need to be real. If you see a whole bunch of 5-star reviews that all come through at the same time, that's a red flag. You want to see, of course, the 5s, some 4s, and maybe the odd 3. Maybe you're going to see comments like, hey, the job didn't start off great, but you know what? They brought it together at the end and we're really happy. This is construction, right? There are challenges. So just be wary if you're seeing very few or no reviews at all, and really look for those reviews that help you get a real good feel for the contractors. Okay. So to bring this all together, we've put together for you, and we're going to share it with you, what we call a contractor vetting checklist. This is a very simple Google sheet, and we're going to share it with you in a spreadsheet as well for Excel. You just basically go down ticking yes or no to a series of contractor vetting questions. I think there's 40 or so of them. The sheet then pops out a score for you, and you're going to want to see scores of 75, 80, or above out of 100. If you get that score when you're going through doing your research, you know this is a contractor that's worth inviting to bid on your project. And just one question, because I get this, or one thing to point out, I get this all the time. How many people should I invite? 4 maximum. If you're doing any more than 4 contractors, you may think, you're helping your owner out or doing really fulsome research. Really what you're doing is making your job more difficult. 4 is more than enough to establish what the market price is for the project and get yourself a really good contractor to partner with. So there you go. Quick summary. It's really 3 simple steps in terms of clarifying your project requirements. Write your basic project outline. We're going to provide you a template for that. Request a budgetary quote if you can from a preferred contractor. If you're lucky enough to have one, by all means do that to level set your price, and then pre-screen your contractors. And again, we're going to share with you a great tool to help you vet out your contractors and make that process really simple.
That's excellent. Yeah. Thank you, Dave. Yeah, that's a really good point. And just as a reminder, a couple other people trickled in here a little midway through. Please, guys, feel free to leverage that Q&A chat box. We will be giving away a $200 Amazon gift card for the best and most insightful question. Dave, one of the ones that came in, and you kind of just lightly touched on it, was, what if I already have a preferred contractor that I've used time and time again?
Yeah, and that's a good place to be. And absolutely, I mean, if you've got a contractor in any given service where you've gone through multiple projects, you know what to expect. You have a good working relationship with them, and you like working with them. That's a real feather in your cap. That's where the budgetary quote comes in play. But you still go to market, especially for bigger projects. That is the best practice to do. But yeah, absolutely leverage that relationship. and request the budgetary quote or recommendations.
Excellent. And I am starting to see that Q&A chat bot really heat up, guys. Amazing stuff. Keep those questions coming. As a reminder, we will have time at the end for a dedicated Q&A session. But to keep things moving along for now and to introduce our next panelist, Heinrich, stage 2, Heinrich is going to take us through the site meeting.
All right. Thank you, Stephen. We're diving into the site meeting, exciting stage 2. So yeah, you know, they just spoke to it in terms of the Q&A. That's fantastic. $200 on the line, guys. $200 for Amazon. So it's down below here, and I'm going to keep the creative juices flowing here with a question for everybody. Just curious if you do site meetings, right? If you actually go through that process, and when we talk about this, we're saying site meetings prior to the award of project. Do you do that, right? And if so, what are some of your best practices? Let's hear those in the notes below in that Q&A. That'd be fantastic. And that sets us up really nicely as we move into this stage. So, you know, when you hear this, you might be thinking, a site meeting, like, oh man, I don't have the time for this. Unlike what Dave's talking about, project requirements. Oh, fantastic. You can do that all from the comfort of the office, from your home, from your laptop. This actually requires a visit. It actually requires going to site. Painful traffic, meeting contractors. Like I'm not interested in any of that, right? And we probably all felt that, especially in this day and age. We're going to explain in this section why that's important, like why that actually is needed, right? So let's dive in. All right. Starts really simple. Let's schedule that site meeting, right? So it's just some best practices on scheduling the site meeting, how you go through the process. Set a specific day and time, right? Like identify a specific day and time that's going to happen, that everybody's going to be involved in. Do that via email. And when we say everybody, you might say, okay, great. So it's the contractors. They're obviously going to be there, but not just the contractors. Obviously, yourself, you need to be there as well. In addition to that, any other key stakeholders, they also need to make sure that they're there. So what could be some potential stakeholders? It depends on the kind of project you have. If you're a strata, perhaps there's a strata contact that comes along, or multiple, right, if they're important. If it's a commercial building of some kind, perhaps there's an operations manager or a building manager, perhaps somebody else as well. Anybody that has a stake in the project should be there. So why? Why should everybody be there? So you don't have to repeat information over and over again. If things come up in that meeting, everybody's there, everybody's on the same page, and you're all aligned right at the onset. Can't stress that enough. It's so important to have that. Requesting confirmation as well. You want to make sure that you request confirmation from all attendees, you know, so that they're all going to be there at that specific day and time. Everybody's aligned and coming. So great. So we've scheduled the meeting. That's step 1. On to step 2. And this is where we dive into actually distributing those project requirements. So you still haven't got to site yet, but you're setting these requirements through. Dave did a great job laying out like why that's important, making sure that everything is lined up in terms of this project. You've probably gotten that budgetary quote as well, so it's setting you up for success, and you're sending that out to everybody. So why do we do this? You send it out to make sure that contractors can actually review this ahead of time, make sure A, that they're aligned, that they can actually do this, right? And B, they're going to do their research. They're going to be thinking about things ahead of time, prepping questions, maybe even visiting site prior, right? So that they come in prepared. You want that. You want to see that. It's going to make this whole process far more streamlined if that's the case, right? So ensure that's the case. Make sure that's done. Send it out time frame wise. We'll say 1 week minimum is what you want to look for, often a couple of weeks ahead of time, just to make sure everybody has time to schedule it in their calendar. We're all busy. We know it. So make sure you give everybody the time to do that. Also, though, if you've given that adequate time, I would say if somebody can't make it, they can't make it. Right? That's ultimately on them, right? That's why you go through this process. You're not doing multiple meetings. You're not going to shuffle things around. You know, you set, this is the time, this is the day and time. They're going to send somebody if they can't make it, right? They're going to make it happen. So stick to that. Great. We've distributed the project requirements. Let's go to site. Step 3, we're touring the site and we're answering questions. So, you know, this is where, yes, you're actually going to have to go through the process and visit site, but hey, let's talk about technology. You know, Dave and I were actually chatting about this a little while earlier here. Dave, what are your thoughts on leveraging video conferencing, you know, to do site visits? What are your thoughts on that?
Right. Yeah, we get this request more and more, or we actually take the lead on this. Where it's really helpful is smaller projects, projects under $25,000, where a contractor can go to site, can look at it. You can video conference with them using, FaceTime or Zoom or whatever, and actually like go, okay, what about this? Is this included? Or here's what I recommend. That's where it's really of value and can save everybody time. Also, photos can be shared, all of that. So absolutely leverage technology. But for the larger projects that are complex and perhaps encompass like entire buildings as opposed to just spot repairs, the site meeting is still really, really key.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. And to reiterate, you still want to do a site meeting, even if technology can be leveraged and leveraged effectively. Hey, we're all for that, right? But make sure that you're still holding this site meeting, right? For the reasons that we're talking about here. So great, you're on site, digitally or in person, ideally in person, right? But you're on site, everybody's there, you've got all your stakeholders, you're all staring at each other. What do? Let's list and talk about the project requirements. You've gone through all this work, you've sent those out, they all should have them. Just reiterate, talk about them, see if there's any questions up front, right? So make sure, boom, great, alignment right off the bat. Now let's walk the site. You're actually going to tour the site itself. You're going to walk all around the property. Why do this? Why go through this process? You want to make sure that questions come up. This is ideal. You want to do this preemptively. You don't want something to come up partway through the project. We've already seen questions on change orders and all sorts of things. You don't want those things to come up halfway through the project. You want them to come up now. You want them to be addressed proactively. That's why this is so important. So answering any of those clarifying questions, and maybe you don't have an answer, and so you can get thoughts collectively or take it away and think about it after the fact. But that's why you go through this process. There's so many.
Hey, Heinrich,
Yeah.
I just realized we skipped a really important step in our presentation here to do with site meetings. The part where the person hosting the site meetings brings everybody's favorite custom coffee for them.
That's true.
That is a best practice.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely a best practice. It should be in the project requirements. I myself peppermint latte all throughout the year, regardless.
Well, we'll add that to the deck when we.
Yeah. That's a key step. Bolded, underlined, so forth.
Good.
Yeah, no, definitely. So yeah, you're going through this, you're touring the site, you're answering these questions, and what are some things that could pop up, right? Access challenges maybe you didn't consider, right? So you address those. Permitting issues that maybe somebody brings up that you didn't think about. Unforeseen repairs. Somebody points, hey, what about that? You deal with those things up front. This is going to mitigate change orders, right? If they're addressed now, at the very least, you can talk about it, dialogue it with ahead of time. Just a quick little side note story here. On a site visit that I had some time back, we were looking at a high rise. It was going to be a full exterior envelope renewal on this high rise. And they were thinking, hey, yeah, we'll do this project a couple years out. Fantastic. We started to walk site and we saw concrete spalls all over this building. And we're talking visible from the ground looking up. And not only that, and I should note, what do I mean when I say concrete spalls? We're talking like chunks of concrete failing. And in some cases, actually falling from the building. We saw concrete on the ground. We were like, that's not good. And it wasn't good. It was really problematic. And we brought that up to them immediately and said, hey, did you aware of this? Like this, it was a busy site. We're like, this is a hazard. Like somebody could be badly injured or worse. This needs to be addressed. And so it's an extreme example, I know, but it was real. And they said, oh, okay, now that it was brought to their attention, they had to take action on it. And that project that was a few years down the line suddenly had to happen immediately. And there was actually emergency repairs done to address those worst issues, those concrete spalls, to make sure that there was no hazard at play. But these kind of things happen all the time, right? So do that site meeting, make sure that's happening. So great, you've completed that. Everybody's on the same page, but definitely there's going to have been questions come up, comments. things that, need to be addressed. That's why we have stage 4, which is issuing addendums, right? So what do we mean when we talk about an addendum? Really simply, it's an addition to your project requirements. It's something that you're going to send after the fact to let everybody know, hey, great, site meeting completed. Here is a little addendum. Here's a few of the additional items that have popped up. You list those, you mark those to be addressed, and that gets everybody to be certainly on the same page. You're dialed in there. So any changes in scope, anything else, it goes in there and we're set up. So that's fantastic. That's your site meeting. Those are your 4 steps. Schedule that site meeting, distribute those project requirements, tour the site, got to tour the site, answer any questions, and issue addendums. And that brings us up to our second red flag, which, is redundant questions post-meeting. So you've probably all experienced this. It's incredibly painful where, you go through that process, you've done this great work, and despite that, you're getting questions. Oh, what about this item? Is it included? I wasn't sure. And it's in the project requirements, or we spoke to it, or it's in an addendum. If you're getting that kind of thing from a contractor, communication is incredibly important. We all know that, especially in this industry, right? It's incredibly important. If they can't communicate effectively, they can't, ultimately read or listen, that's a real red flag. It's something that you'd be like, okay, if this person can't effectively, read, listen, go through this process, you're going to really question whether you want to, include them, or at the very least, it's something just to note, right? So that's our second red flag there. And that concludes the site meeting stage.
Excellent. Right on. Thank you, Heinrich. Such an important stage of the process. And we just had a great comment. It helps to build relationships, trust, and just the culture for all stakeholders as well that are going to be working together. A couple questions came through, and they're kind of in the similar vein. So I think it's an important one we kind of give pause and answer. And that was, what if the project is remote, or if it's difficult to find a contractor for that specific location? Do you guys have any suggestions or examples of a time that we undertook a remote project?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we definitely work all over the Lower Mainland, predominantly, but we're doing work all over BC with some, major clients of ours on the island and beyond. So yeah, this is definitely something that can pop up. And yeah, there's a few ways to approach this, leverage technology, right? As we talked about, you can absolutely leverage technology. You can still have that site meeting or some version of that site meeting that you go through, leveraging that. And we've done that in the past where there's been an on-site building manager that's just gone through, and we've done it through video conferencing, like we talked about previously. We've also gone through and actually proactively visited site. If it's a complex enough project, it's worth visiting site and still doing that site meeting, still going through that process. So sometimes you just got to do that to make sure that you're dialed in proactively and ahead of time.
Excellent. And Dave, anything to add to that one?
Yeah, I mean, this is where the trusted and vetted contractor comes into play. If you're lucky enough to have one, regardless of the service that you're looking to have done, they can do things like look at the project online, give you an idea for price. If it's something that really is going to get done, and you have the great relationship, they can make the trip to site. We've done projects as far as 100 Mile House. For our customers. And this is where you go, okay, well, a local contractor, yes, they're going to put in lodging, travel time, per diems into their quote. Yes, they are going to be higher than higher than a local contractor, but them. So is it worth risking with somebody you don't know on a remote site that you have very little control on, or do you want to go with a contractor So this is where, if you're lucky enough to have a great relationship, it can really, really help out.
Yeah, 100%.
Excellent. Great. Well, still a little bit of content to get through today. Really appreciate some of the questions coming up, guys. As a reminder, we will have a Q&A slide towards the end where we can address some of these great questions that are incoming a little bit more in detail. But moving right along to stage 3, and Dave is actually going to take us through awarding the project, the third and final stage here.
All right, let's bring it home. So you've done all your research. You've put together a tight project requirement sheet. You've held your site meeting. You've answered the clarifying questions, and you're now at the stage where it's time to award the project. It's now time to make your decision. So the first step, you need to review all the proposals that come in. Like I said, 4 maximum, that's more than enough. Okay. And then you're going to get these 4 proposals. They're going to come in on time because you set the submission deadline and you've also set the award date. So you're working towards that. We talked about that in the project requirements outline that you put together. Now's the time you've got to go through and review the proposals, right? You want to make sure that they were bid accordingly, both to your requirements and to any addendums or changes that happened after the site meeting that Heinrich touched on. You want to make sure that all your unique needs that you identified in your project requirements are addressed. You know, that if the work is being done after hours, that's noted in the proposal. If you had a specific bonding requirement or a certification requirement, that is noted in your proposal. Okay, you want to make sure that you're getting apples to apples, right? So, of course, the other thing, it goes without saying, you're going to be looking at the price. So you've gotten 4 prices. Hopefully they're all relatively close. And then, you know, one of the key stages we're going to talk about is going to be key. But often is the case, you're going to have a price that's way out there, way high. And that's a signal that that contractor probably isn't interested in the project. And it doesn't mean they're not a great contractor. It doesn't mean they're rude. It just means that they're like, hey, I don't think I can meet these deadlines, or we're too busy, or we have another project that we're about to be awarded that is going to be done during this time frame. Could be something like that. And then you also might get another outlier where the price is really low. And let's talk about a red flag around this. So I'm not talking a price that's, 3, 5, 6% below the average. I'm talking about a price that's 25% low. Okay. If it looks too good to be true, it probably is. So the challenge here is your owner is going to love that price, right? But you're the one who's going to be responsible for choosing the right contractor, or at least influencing that decision. So if you have this price that's super low, perhaps it's a scenario where you know the contractor, you might want to call and say, hey, just checking in on this here. Want to make sure you got everything in this. And if they say, yeah, we did, then I would say, even if it's a contractor that you have a relationship with, you go, you know what, on this one, we're going to eliminate you from the bidding process. You know, you can have another shot at it next time, but likely a mistake was made, unless there's a very compelling reason that they can tell you, nope, here's how I came up with this cost savings for you. And that's great. But if you're not hearing a very specific reason for the cost savings, probably should move on from that bid. Okay. So you've got your 4 bids. And let's say it is a scenario where one's way high, one's way low. So you're down to 2. The average or mean, or let's say the average of those 2 prices is the market price for the project. You should feel confident that, okay, this job, the average of these 2 prices, $220,000, $450,000, that's the market price for the job. Okay. So now the difficult task is choosing between the 2. Both proposals look great. Both prices are within 2, 3, 4% of each other. So how do you choose? Well, that's the next step. It's interviewing the contractors. Okay. So you pick up the phone, you go through their proposals, making sure everything's what you need. Pull back that contractor vetting checklist that you did way back before you even invited them. Go through, confirm a few things on there. Talk to them about the key requirements that you listed. How are they going to handle the certifications you required? How are they going to handle the tight scheduling? How are they going to handle the busy job site? How are they going to ensure the site is clean daily? How are they going to ensure the job is done on deadline? How are they going to handle change orders if they come up? All of these questions that you got to ask. Okay. And then from there, you're going to make your decision. Okay. And it's always exciting. You've done a fair amount of work. The contractors have done a bunch of work. The owners are excited to get the project done. So awarding a contract is an exciting time in construction. And here's a couple best practices on how to do it. First, make a phone call to the contractor for a verbal award. Say to them, hey, contractor ABC, congratulations. We're going to be awarding you the contract. It's going through the procurement process, and we expect that to take a few days here. Why do you do that? Because if you are awarding a project in like spring, summer, the busy season for all contractors, their schedules will change day by day. POs get issued on a daily basis. So things change. You want to secure a spot. So as soon as you know you're going to that contractor, call them and say, you're getting the job. We're in procurement. We're going to have you a contract or a signed proposal within the next 3 days. They will feel good and confident that they're going to be getting it. And then you got to meet that. You got to meet that deadline. So follow up with an email saying, yep, just confirming our conversation. We're going to get your proposal in 3 days. And then we can get going with the pre-production meeting. And I'm just going to share from the contractor side of things. We will not consider a job official until we have a purchase order or a signed contract or a signed proposal. Okay. We've all been burned where we've been told we're going to get a job and then it goes sideways for whatever reason, budget change or whatever. So we base our schedule on signed POs and proposals. So you want to turn that around as tightly as you can. But yeah, so there you go. You've done all the work and now you've awarded the project, and then you're going to get rolling.
Great. Thanks, Dave. Yeah. Guys, we've got some terrific questions that are still filtering in. Thank you so much. As a reminder, Q&A session is going to be upcoming here shortly as well. We do have an exciting announcement post Q&A session, so please stick around. But prior to diving into all of that, I just wanted to hand things back off to Heinrich, who's just going to take us through a quick review.
All right, review time. So yeah, just a little reminder of those tools. I know we've spoken to it once or twice here, but we are going to share those with you. And the reason why I say that, and of course those tools are, there's a vetting checklist, which you will get. And there's also going to be a project requirements template that you can use, logoed with our stuff. And hey, if you want to keep our logos on there, all good, totally fine, right? But hey, if you want to customize it, we understand, no problem. But you should absolutely use those as templates, because this is the kind of thing that gets easier every time that you do it. Some of you might be thinking, this is a lot of work up front, but it's a lot of work and it actually saves you time in the long run. Like, we can't reiterate that enough. It saves you time in the long run to do this, and it ensures these projects are just going to run more smoothly, and you're going to select the right contractor for the job. And really, that's what this is all about, right? Making sure you select the right contractor for the job. So with that in mind, we're going to do a lightning round here and do a quick little review. You haven't paid attention to anything up until this point. So for those of you who are focused on email right now, take a moment. Any calls, you can end those, texts, focus in, and we're going to go through really quick and just highlight the key steps. We're not going to look at all the content, just the major factors here, right? So to begin with, clarifying project requirements. It's really simple. Just make sure you write project requirements. You go through the process and do that. Detail your unique needs, put that on there. That's incredibly important. That's it. Make sure you do that. Next, the site meeting. Not surprisingly, do a site meeting. Like, make sure that you're doing that site meeting. Do it in person, leverage technology if you can, if it's needed, issue addendums, but make sure you're doing that site meeting. It saves so much to do that, to make sure all stakeholders are there. Incredibly crucial. So make sure that happens. Finally, in the awarding the project stage, interview your contractors. Yeah, Dave mentioned this. You want to make sure that A, you trust them, and B, that you like them, that they communicate effectively, that you can go through that process, So do that, make sure that's the case. That's going to help you select the right contractor. So quick little review there. But wait, if there's only one thing you should do on this, if you're like, nothing else, please do a site meeting. Make sure you're doing that site meeting. It's so important. And yes, it requires driving. Generally, it's going to require time, but you're just going to solve so many issues. You know, I've seen multiple questions about change orders and mitigating that. I'm telling you right now, this piece will help do that, because you make sure you get everybody on the same page. You leverage the expertise of everybody. So do those site meetings. If there's nothing else, make sure you're doing that. Okay, onto our red flags. So first red flag, careful of no reviews, careful of just a few reviews that are maybe batched and all really good, don't have any comments. Just be mindful of that. Make sure you're looking for those, watching them on the review front, because hey, that's how we all look for effectiveness for people. It's word of mouth, and then we also look to reviews, right? So keep that in mind. Important red flag. Second, on the site meeting, you've completed the site meeting, gone great, but you're getting a contractor following up with redundant questions, things that have been addressed already. That's a big no-no, right? Honestly, it's a big no-no, and you really want to consider if you're going to work with them if they can't communicate effectively. They can't listen. Let's be real. All right. Next, finally, awarding the project. Dave talked about this. If that price is just too good to be true, it probably is, right? So you really need to think carefully about whether you want to work with them if it just doesn't make sense, especially if you've gone through all this effort. All this time, this effort, you've aligned everybody, and there's still this massive outlier on price. Something's up, and you need to look into that. So that's a red flag as well. And that's it.
Excellent. Right on. Okay. Well, thank you, Heinrich. Thank you, Dave. A lot of great content that we just went through, guys. I know that was a ton of information to intake. As a reminder, this deck and presentation is going to be sent to you guys. Now is the time we're going to jump into a little bit of Q&A. I've been taking note, guys, of some of these amazing questions that have come in, so I will be asking Dave and Heinrich to ask those live. As a note, we will be selecting a winner of the Amazon gift card afterwards, and we will reach out to that individual directly. And we've already noted your questions, as I said, and if there's anything within this Q&A we're not able to get to, we'll make sure that we follow up and address it directly. And also, please stick around after the Q&A. There is an exciting announcement mentioned at the beginning. But to jump in and just also give you guys a quick question, there's been a couple that have come in that are in the same vein. So I think that there's kind of a blanket approach. We can answer a couple at the same time, but it just has to circulate around: how soon should my contractor be issuing me a quote after my requirements or the site meeting happens?
Yeah, no, and that definitely pops up. And, you know, right in the project requirements, you can speak to this. You can say, hey, you know what, expecting it by this and this date. Dave spoke to that as well. It's an important piece in those project requirements, but here is a beautiful reason why you do that site meeting after the fact, because you're going to meet with everybody, and there may be something that you have not considered, right? When you go there, and you might have your contractors look at you and say, okay, you're asking for it in 1 week, but quite frankly, you know, we need to coordinate all of these different variables. It requires hoarding on site. I need to, you know, consider and look at specialty scaffolding, other variables. This is going to take me a few weeks to coordinate. So actually, could we have a 3-week time frame on this? Hey, if that's the collective wisdom that you're getting, by all means, you're going to have to adapt to make sure that you're giving adequate time for them to quote accordingly. Right. So what happens? Let's go back to our steps. Issue that addendum, right? You issue an addendum, you change the date. We see that all the time if it's needed, right? And then everybody's aligned, and you're going to get things on time in that way.
Yeah. Excellent.
Hey, Steve, there's a really great question here that I think probably will help everybody else out here. Do you mind if I jump in here?
Please. Yeah, please.
Yeah, okay. So there's one question where the gentleman is saying, hey, in a strata where nobody has expertise, for example, building envelopes, who should be prepping the project requirements? Assess the merits of the proposal. So great question. I'm sure some others out there are thinking this. Hey, I'm in the property management world. I'm a facility manager. I'm an operations specialist. I am not a building envelope specialist. I am not a remodeling specialist. Who should be prepping these documents? The answer is it's the person who's putting the project to tender. You do not need, and to put to tender, I mean going out there to get bids. You do not need to be a subject matter expert. or a construction expert to do any of these things we just talked about. You'll see when we share with you the tools, there is no technical stuff in there. No building science and construction science stuff in there. It's all very simple things, best practices for selecting the right contractors. Your contractors are the subject matter experts. They are going to be the ones that will be making the recommendations to you that you need to listen to and trust. But you're just saying, hey, here's what we need done. Here's when we need it done by. Here's our requirements that I want to make you aware of. And here's the award date, all that stuff. And then at the site meeting, your contractors will step up. The good contractors will step up at that site meeting and help you lead it and be like, hey, we're noticing your sealants are failed here. Should that be put into the scope of work? And you'll be thinking, what's a sealant? And a good contractor will explain it to you and really help you out with that. But that was a great question. And I'm guessing lots of people are thinking that.
Yeah, and just one other thing to chime in on, and we did say this before, but some of you are probably thinking like, okay, but this project is massive and complex, like, and it's way beyond me. This is a project that's $2, $3, $5 million project, right? Like that's a lot. And you're right. You're right. And so our recommendation, to state it again, would definitely be, if you're into that level of complexity on a project, by all means, like reach out, bring an engineer, an envelope engineer, for example, a consultant, if it's a high complexity roofing project, for example. There's experts in all these different fields. For that level of project, that's where you want to leverage that kind of expertise. By all means, and so consider that and do that. But yeah, everything Dave said definitely stands. You can absolutely go through this process. You go through these tools and make sure that you're set up for success.
Yeah. Yeah. Really insightful, guys. Yeah. Just keeping an eye on time. We're about 8 minutes to the top of the hour. We do have an hour booked here. There's a couple other additional items that we need to quickly address before we conclude. I think we have time for a couple other questions. I thought this one was really great, guys. And it basically just circulates, what scale of projects do you suggest to have consultants involved? So I guess at what point are you bringing in that third-party consultant? And I know we touched on the cost threshold, but maybe you guys can share just a couple more insights about that.
Yeah, no, and I just sort of spoke to that, which I think definitely some people are thinking, and it comes down to, hey, if this is a project that has a high level of complexity and from a size standpoint, like this is going to be sizable, and what did we say previously? And this varies, so there's no set number, but like if it's a project that's $200,000-$300,000 from an expectation standpoint and up, then a consideration to bring a consultant or an engineer into it is certainly a viable one, right? And the reason why is just because there's a lot of complexity on projects like that, right? There's just going to be a lot of variables that are going to maybe be beyond you, as well as beyond, your owners, whether it's a strata, a building owner, a collection of owners, what have you, right? So that's a period of time where you can consider that from a simple standpoint.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. Like Heinrich said, it is situational. There are scenarios where bringing in third parties only adds to the layers of complexity. And there is scenarios where a $500,000 job can be relatively simple, right? Especially if you're not moving into a scenario where there's a lot of repair and restoration work. Perhaps it's just a massive warehousing complex, 10 huge warehouses that need to be recoded, right? Big project, but not necessarily complex. So a bit situational, but yeah, I would agree. If you're getting over that $250,000, $300,000 threshold, something to consider: engineer, consultant, third-party expert to help out. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, I think we have time for one more question. And this was actually the first one asked, so I wanted to circle back on it. It's a really good point. And it just has to circulate. You get into situations where the contractor gives a quote before starting the job. However, during or after, you start to see a significantly higher cost due to unexpected work that arises. Can you guys maybe just touch on that a little bit and how to mitigate that beyond what we talked about today?
Go ahead, H.
Yeah, certainly. No, so as stated, I mean, this is such a pain point we know for so many clients. It's just like, oh geez, we're getting change orders, unexpected change orders, that hey, where are these coming from? Should I believe this? How do I go through that process? And it comes down to, and I spoke to this previously, but it comes down to, and Dave did too, but making sure you have really clear project requirements. But that site meeting, this is a clear time. And I'm going to give you one really just very simple tool at that site meeting. Just ask proactively. This is before anybody's even submitted. Just ask them, hey, what can we expect in terms of potential change orders on this project? We've laid out the project specifications here. We've laid out the requirements. We've got a clear scope. Are there any change orders we should be considering? Ask them up front. Don't wait. Make sure that that's done, and you'll get answers. You'll get clarity, right? So that you can put this in a box. So that's one thing to really do. The other thing to recognize is it's also situational based on the work that you're doing, based on the trade. There's some projects where you're probably going to expect change orders to pop up. Right? For example, if you're doing a large scale, concrete renewal, right, where there's spalling all over the place, there's times where you can see some of this, but there's also times where it's unseen and you're only going to get into that after the fact. So how do you approach that? Again, being proactive, having that conversation, and a good contractor will let you know that. They'll say proactively, they'll let you know, like, hey, just so you're aware, there's probably going to be some change orders that pop up. We can't tell. We're not certain about them right now, right? But here's what you can expect down the line. So that level of communication is what you're looking for, but you can also mitigate that by the question that I just spoke to previously. Again, just ask ahead of time at that site meeting, hey, what change orders can we expect here? That's how you can proactively make sure that you minimize this from happening.
Great.
And Steve, just real quickly, I see there's a whole bunch of questions that we haven't had time to answer.
Yeah.
We will reach out to people with these specific questions and provide answers for you after the fact. There's some questions regards to the services that we offer. We're just going to run out of time here, but yeah, we'll reach out to these people and answer the best questions as best we can.
Absolutely.
Last super quick thing. One quick question. I'll just answer it really basically. Does the coffee include Baileys or similar at that site meeting? Absolutely. I mean, on high complexity projects, we do expect Baileys or similar, other equivalents that you can leverage to make sure that everybody's at ease. So yeah, we align and agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys. I mean, it's obvious listening to the two of you discuss these things. You're very passionate, extremely knowledgeable. So I appreciate you guys just, shedding some insights. And as Dave mentioned, I've made a note of every single question that came in that we just unfortunately ran out of time to get to. But prior to letting you guys go, just wanted to note next steps. We will be providing this deck as well as a recording of this session. And that is going to include the additional materials that we mentioned, just to kind of equip you guys to be able to really start your projects off on the right foot and provide that foundation to ensure successful experiences. And also contact us. You had Dave and Heinrich's email on the last slide. You've got my direct email through the invite of this web shop. Please feel free to reach out. I will be proactive in reaching out to you with all the questions that we were unable to get to. And some of the questions that we're filtering in were circulating project management, which is great because our upcoming web shop, date to be determined, is going to be discussing simple project management. So we'll make sure that we reach out to you guys directly for those invites. Lastly, lunch and learn. I wanted to bring that back top of mind. We are happy to come into your office or host you at ours. Lunch is on us, tailored content for you and your colleagues. Now, to get into one of the first things I said you'd want to stick around for is an upcoming event. It's our Fast Track to Summer. It's an exciting chance for us to meet some of you guys face to face. So if you are local in Vancouver or plan to be here on Saturday, May the 11th, we welcome you to join us at Hastings Racecourse and Casino for our free event and summer kickoff party. So we'll be enjoying a day of great food. For the adults, we'll have horse race betting, drinks, as well as it is a family-friendly event. We will have a petting zoo and face painting for the kiddos. So if you're interested, we'll send you an email invite for the RSVP and we'll hope to see you there. But guys, we're right at the top of the hour. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Thank you so much for coming to our first of the series of web shops, and we'll look forward to seeing you again really soon.
Thanks,
right.
everybody.
Thanks.